So I oftentimes think, no, I know that I'm the smartest person in the room. You can't take that from me. I always think I'm the smartest person in the room. Sometimes when I get in a room, I look around, see, is there anybody else smarter than me? You can't take it from me. And I want to tell you where I came to that conclusion, how that happened. So when I was in the first grade, it was around maybe the first week of November. We had just got our first report card for the 9 weeks, and I made all A's. Now, I don't know how I made all A's. I wasn't even conscious about trying to make all A's. I just did whatever the work the teacher said do, and I just so happened to make all A's in all of my subjects. One day, the principal came walking down the hall. We could always hear Mr. Williams. We could hear him because he had a certain cadence and he had those keys that used to rattle. And he came walking down the hall and came to the classroom, and he said he interrupted the teacher. He said, I need to do something. And the teacher, of course, she gave him the floor. And he said, I want all of my all A students to stand up. And so, okay, that's me. So I stood up. There was two other people in my class, Joy Lesh and Lamont Ashford. They too stood up. He said, come up to the front, come up to the front. So we go up to the front, and he has with him this big old basket full of chocolate. I'm talking about Reese's Pieces, M&Ms, Snickers bars, Butterfingers. I mean, big old basket full of chocolate. And the man says to us, he says, all my all A students, I want you to reach into this basket and I want you to get what you want. And so me being raised a certain way, in a collectivistic society, right? I reached in and I grabbed one. He said, no, I want you to go in and I want you to reach in with both hands and get whatever you want. And so, okay, fine. The man said, do it. So I went in there and I grabbed both hands full of chocolate. He said, now you all can go back to your seat and you don't have to share that with anybody. That is yours. You earned it. And for the rest of you students in this class, I want you to take heed, because there is a reward when you do hard work in school. And so that day, I'm sitting there with this 2 handfuls of chocolate. This man has affirmed to me that I am special, that I am smart, and that I am somebody that's worthy of all of this, which is probably why I'm addicted to chocolate today. I eat chocolate every day. Every day that ends in Y, I eat chocolate. But 2 things happened on that particular day. This man, who's the principal of the school, who I admired, he spoke life into me, telling me that I was smart and telling me that I was worthy. He pulled me out from the rest of the class and gave me a reward for it. This principal is what we would call a significant other. And when a significant other appraises you, tells you who you are, and you believe it, it becomes a reflected appraisal. Significant others can be your parents, they could be your pastors, they could be your teachers. In that case, it was the school principal. He told me who I was and I believed it. And so it became a reflected appraisal. And so from that day forward, I think I was 7 years old in the first grade, six or seven. That day forward, I knew I was smart. I knew it that day. I didn't know it before then, but I knew it that particular day. Here's something else that happened in that class. Joy Lesh and Lamont Ashford and myself, throughout the rest of elementary school, were the only people who consistently made all A's. I want you to think about that for a minute. We were the only 3 people who consistently made all A's. When that principal was trying to do a nice thing for us, what he was really doing was speaking something negative to them. And thus they believed it, and they never really moved up into that ladder of being all A students. Now, did that principal mean any harm? No. And your parents, sometimes they don't mean any harm, but sometimes our parents say some things. They put some things in us. Our older brother, our older sister, they don't mean any harm. They're probably trying to protect us. They're trying to love on us. They're trying to motivate us. They're trying to encourage us. But sometimes they say things and then we believe it and it becomes a part of who we are, a part of who we are. And so those other students were listening to that principal. They too believed it, and that became a part of who they were. And this other thing was happening in the room. I'm in the room and I'm looking around the room, and what am I noticing? I'm noticing that I'm in an elite group. I'm in a special force. I'm part of the VIP crew, me, Joy Lesh, and Lamont Ashford. So I was doing what you call a social comparison. And by doing that social comparison, I was saying to myself, oh, I'm smarter than them. And that means I'm better than them. And I got rewarded. And if I was doing that social comparison, thinking that I was better than them, imagine what some of them were doing in terms of their social comparison. They were saying to themselves, I'm not as good. I'm not a part of that group. I'm not worthy of that chocolate. But once again, the principal didn't mean any harm. He wasn't trying to, like, I mean, they probably wouldn't do something like that, in modern times. But this was, almost 40 years ago. He didn't mean any harm. He was, he was a good man. But reflected appraisal and social comparison happened that day. And that forever shaped the way that I see myself when it comes to my intellect. You could call me stupid or dumb all day long. I won't believe it. I won't believe it, because that has been ingrained in me and it's become a part of me. And when something like your self-concept, which are the things that you believe about yourself, when that becomes a part of you, it's very difficult to break that. It can change, but it's very difficult. And so if it's something negative in your self-concept, that too is very hard to break and very hard to change. And so what I would imagine for somebody like Donald Trump is that in his early years of his life, he was constantly being reinforced that he is good, that he is the best, that what he touches is gold, that he's a wonderful person, that he's the smartest in the room. It makes perfect sense that Donald Trump would surround himself with his family members or people on his cabinet who would continue to affirm that, right? He's not going to surround himself with a team of people who are going to push back on him. He's going to surround himself with people who would affirm that belief that he already has. So let me share my screen here. I just want to give you a very clear definition, go to my notes, of self-concept, reflected appraisal, and social comparison. So the self-concept is a relatively stable, meaning it doesn't want to shift, it doesn't want to adjust, it doesn't want to move, it wants to stay the same. A relatively stable set of perceptions, which are beliefs that you hold of yourself. These could be your emotional states, your talents, your likes, your dislikes, your physical features, your values, your roles. All of these things that you think about yourself, right? That's your self-concept. Now, your self-esteem, which is related to the self-concept, is really, how do I feel about those things? How do I feel about them? And if I feel positive about them, that's generally going to mean I'm going to have a much more positive self-esteem. If I hate those things about myself and I'm beating myself up because of those things that are a part of me, that's going to generally make you have a lower self-esteem. Take a look at my nose. I got a big nose. I've always had a big old nose. If you look at it from the side, it sort of like dips down. So kids used to tease me all the time, especially because I was the smartest person in the room. So they had to find something to tease me about in elementary school. They used to tease me about my nose. And I used to say to myself, as soon as I make some money, I'm going to have me a nose job. I'm going to get me a Michael Jackson nose. I'm going to get me a small little button, little petite little nose. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix this nose. So my self-concept is that I have a big nose. That's my self-concept. That's what I believe about myself. I have a big nose. My self-esteem is that I hate my nose. That's how I feel about my nose. I hate it, right? Especially when I was a child. Now, when I got to college, in college, I probably did most of my dating. When I started dating in college, I tell you, I did a lot of dating. Every time, it had to do with my nose. My nose was the sexiest thing that got me all of those dates. And so I'm just like, what? Are you serious? Like my nose? Really? Really? I kept hearing it over and over and over again. Like that nose, what is it? Is it like it looks like, I don't know, part Italian or Native American. It's so virile. It's so like, it fits your face, like that nose. Like, really? And so because I kept hearing it over and over and over again, my self-esteem about my nose shifted. It changed to me liking my nose. So now I'm not gonna have plastic surgery. I'm gonna keep my nose. Now, what is the difference? Here's the big question. What is the difference between me being a child who hated my nose versus me being an adult who now loves my nose? What was the difference? When I was younger, it was my classmates, those kids. They told me about my nose. When I got older, it was all those dates. They told me about my nose. People told me who I am. This is what I'm going to put out there right now, and I want you to let this sit. Just about everything you think about yourself or know about yourself, it didn't come from you. It came from other people.